Last night's episode of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert erupted into unprecedented chaos when Jennifer Aniston was forcibly removed from the studio after Stephen Colbert crossed every professional boundary with invasive questions about her personal life and childlessness. The beloved actress didn't just challenge his inappropriate interrogation. She delivered a profound dismantling of his performative feminism that left him exposed as a hypocrite and CBS facing massive backlash. But what started as promotion for Aniston's new production company would reveal something darker about how male late-night hosts treat successful women who don't conform to traditional expectations. The Ed Sullivan Theater atmosphere was noticeably different from the moment Aniston arrived. The 55-year-old actress was there to discuss her new production company's focus on complex female narratives, but Colbert's writers had prepared an entirely different agenda. A production assistant later revealed that Colbert had specifically instructed his team to dig into the baby thing and find out why she really never had kids. The warm-up comedian had been making jokes about biological clocks and Hollywood women who choose careers over family. Multiple staffers expressed discomfort with the planned line of questioning, with one writer reportedly telling Colbert, "This feels wrong," only to be dismissed with, "It's what the audience wants to know." Therefore, when the cameras rolled, Aniston was walking into an ambush disguised as an interview. The show opened with Colbert's typical political monologue, including several pointed jokes about powerful women who intimidate weak men that seemed supportive on the surface but carried an undercurrent of something else. Aniston waited backstage, reviewing notes about her production slate, completely unaware that Colbert had no intention of discussing her professional achievements. Her publicist would later reveal that they'd been assured the interview would focus solely on her business ventures and upcoming projects. When Colbert finally announced, "Please welcome Jennifer Aniston," she walked out with her characteristic warmth, waving to the enthusiastic audience, her smile genuine but her instincts already alerting her to something off in Colbert's demeanor. "Jennifer, always a pleasure," Colbert began with his familiar charm. "You look amazing as always." "Thank you, Stephen. I'm excited to talk about the new company. We have some incredible projects," she said, trying to establish the conversation's direction. "We'll get to that," Colbert said dismissively. "But first, I want to talk about something more personal. You're 55 now. Any regrets about not having children?" The studio went quiet. Aniston's smile remained, but her eyes hardened slightly. "I thought we were here to discuss my production company," she said calmly. "We are. But isn't it relevant? You're producing stories about women. Don't you think you're missing a crucial female experience?" Colbert pressed, leaning forward with false concern. "There are many female experiences, Stephen. Motherhood is one of them." "Not the only one," Aniston replied, her voice steady but firm. "But don't you think it's the most important one? Biologically speaking," he continued. Therefore, the sexist interrogation had begun immediately, wrapped in pseudo-intellectual language. Aniston shifted in her chair, studying Colbert with the same intensity she brought to her dramatic roles. "Biologically speaking, are we really reducing women to their reproductive functions in 2025? She asked pointedly. "I'm just asking what millions wonder. Was it a choice? Was it circumstance? Do you regret it?" Colbert said, playing to what he assumed his audience wanted. "You know what millions actually wonder, Stephen? Why successful men are never asked these questions. Why nobody asks George Clooney about his late fatherhood. Why childless men are bachelors, but childless women are tragic figures," Aniston responded. "That's deflecting," Colbert accused. "That's highlighting your sexism," Aniston corrected. "You invited me here to discuss my work, and you're interrogating me about my uterus. Do you see the problem?" The audience began murmuring, some in support of Aniston. But Colbert doubled down, sensing controversy meant ratings. "I'm trying to understand you as a complete person," he claimed. "No, you're trying to fit me into your narrow definition of what a woman should be. And when I don't fit, you assume something's wrong with me rather than your definition," Aniston replied. She stood up slowly, her movement deliberate. "You want to know the truth about my choices? Fine. Let's talk about choices. You chose to have children. Good for you. I chose to build a career, maintain my autonomy, and find fulfillment in other ways. Good for me. The difference is, I'm not questioning your choices, she said. Sit down, Jennifer. We're having a conversation, Colbert said, his authority wavering. No, we're not. You're conducting an inquisition. There's a difference between dialogue and interrogation, Aniston said. But then Colbert revealed something that changed everything. Our research shows you've had multiple pregnancies. Want to discuss those? He said with a cruel smile. The studio gasped. Aniston's face went pale, then flushed with rage. How dare you? She said quietly, her voice carrying more menace than any shout could. It's public record, Colbert said defensively. My medical history is not public record. You obtained that illegally, and you're using my personal pain as entertainment, Aniston said, her voice shaking with controlled fury. She turned to the audience, and this is where something important happens. You know, there are people watching this right now who've struggled with fertility, who've lost pregnancies, who've made difficult choices about parenthood. And this man is turning that pain into a punchline. If you're one of those people, know that your story matters. Your pain is valid. And if sharing this helps even one person feel less alone, then his cruelty has backfired. Please, if this resonates with you, share it. Comment your support for others going through this. Like this video not for me, but for every woman who's been reduced to her reproductive choices. Your engagement means another person might see this and know they're not alone in their struggle, she said directly to the camera. The audience was completely silent, many with tears in their eyes. But Colbert, desperate to regain control, made things worse. You're being overly sensitive, he said dismissively. And you're being overtly misogynistic, Aniston shot back. You claim to be a feminist ally, but you're interrogating me about motherhood like it's 1955. You claim to support women, but you're reducing me to my biological functions. You claim to be progressive, but you're perpetuating the exact stereotypes that hold women back, she said. That's unfair, Colbert protested. Is it? When was the last time you asked a male guest about his reproductive choices? When did you last imply a man was incomplete without children? When did you last obtain illegal medical records on a man? Aniston challenged. Colbert couldn't answer. His mouth opened and closed soundlessly. But Aniston wasn't finished. You want to know what's really pathetic? You have 2 daughters. Is this how you want them treated? Reduced to their reproductive potential? Their worth measured by their fertility? Their private medical information used as entertainment? She asked. The mention of his daughters visibly shook Colbert. Don't bring my family into this, he said weakly. You brought mine into it. My potential family, my lack of family, my private choices about family. But now it's off limits when it's about you. Aniston observed. She moved closer to his desk. Let me tell you something about choices, Stephen. I chose my career. I chose my freedom. I chose my path. And I'm successful, happy, and fulfilled. That threatens you, doesn't it? A woman who doesn't need motherhood to be complete, she said. I'm not threatened, Colbert claimed unconvincingly. Then why are you so desperate to find something wrong with my life? Why can't you accept that a woman without children can be happy? What about that reality scares you so much? Aniston pressed. Therefore, the psychological analysis was devastating. Colbert was being exposed not as a progressive ally, but as a traditionalist hiding behind liberal language. But Aniston had more ammunition. You know what your female writers told me backstage? That you consistently dismiss their ideas if they don't have children. That you've said mothers understand comedy better. That you've created a hostile environment for childless women on your staff, she revealed. That's not true, Colbert said, but his panic was evident. Should we ask them? They're watching right now. Should we invite them on stage to share their experiences? Aniston suggested. The threat of exposure from his own staff was devastating. Several camera operators nodded in agreement, having witnessed the behavior themselves. But Colbert made a fatal error. Security, please escort Ms. Aniston out, he said into his microphone. The audience gasped. Asking security to remove a guest, especially a beloved actress, was unprecedented. But Aniston laughed. Perfect. You're literally silencing a woman who challenged your sexism. The optics are beautiful, Stephen. Please, have me forcibly removed for discussing women's autonomy, she said. Two security guards approached hesitantly, clearly uncomfortable. The audience began booing Colbert. Several people stood up in protest. "This is my show," Colbert said desperately. "And this is my life you're dissecting for entertainment. The difference is, your show can be canceled. My choices can't be unmade. And I don't want them to be," Aniston said. As security reluctantly moved closer, she raised her hand to stop them. "I'll leave on my own. But first, let me say something to every woman watching who's been asked when they're having kids, why they don't have kids, or what's wrong with them for not wanting kids. Nothing is wrong with you. Your worth isn't determined by your reproductive choices. You are complete exactly as you are," she said. She looked directly at Colbert. "And to men like this who police women's bodies while claiming to be allies, you're not progressives. You're patriarchs with better vocabulary. You're not supporting women. You're controlling them with softer language," she said. "Get out," Colbert said quietly, his facade completely shattered. "I'm going. But remember this moment, Stephen. The moment you had security remove a woman for refusing to justify her childlessness. The moment you exposed yourself as exactly the kind of man you claim to oppose," Aniston said. She walked toward the exit with dignity, then turned back one final time. "By the way, my production company's first project? A documentary about workplace sexism in late-night television. Thank you for the footage," she said. The revelation that she'd been documenting this encounter sent Colbert into visible panic. "You can't use this without permission," he said desperately. "Actually, I can. It's called journalism. Something you used to understand before you became part of the problem," Aniston replied. She left to thunderous applause. The entire audience gave her a standing ovation, many shouting support. Some walked out in solidarity. The show had to go to commercial immediately, but the damage was catastrophic. Within minutes, #ColbertSexism was trending globally. The clip of him calling security on Aniston went viral instantly. Women shared their own stories of being questioned about motherhood. The collective rage was palpable, but the real impact came from within CBS. Female employees began coming forward with stories of discrimination. The hostile environment Aniston had mentioned was confirmed by multiple sources. The network faced a crisis. Colbert attempted to continue the show after commercial, but the audience was hostile. People shouted "apologize" and "sexist" throughout his monologue. He ended the show early, visibly shaken. The next day brought an avalanche of consequences. Women's organizations condemned Colbert's behavior. Sponsors targeting female demographics pulled their support immediately. His own wife released a statement saying she was disappointed and disturbed by his treatment of Aniston. Aniston's response was brilliant. She released the full unedited footage of their pre-interview conversation, where Colbert explicitly said he wanted to crack her perfect facade and find out what's really wrong with her. The premeditation was undeniable. CBS suspended The Late Show pending investigation. Colbert's female staff members filed a collective complaint about workplace discrimination. The show that had positioned itself as progressive was exposed as deeply sexist. Meanwhile, Aniston's production company received massive support. Her documentary project was fast-tracked by multiple platforms. She'd turned Colbert's attack into a movement. But the deeper conversation was about how society treats childless women. Aniston had articulated something millions felt, that choosing not to have children wasn't a deficiency, but a valid choice. That women's worth wasn't determined by motherhood. That even supposedly progressive men harbored deep sexism about women's roles. Colbert eventually returned to air after a month suspension, but his show never recovered its credibility. His feminist ally persona was permanently shattered. Female guests refused to appear. His audience, particularly women, largely abandoned him. The incident became known as the Aniston Awakening. Universities taught it as an example of performative allyship versus actual support. It showed how even liberal spaces could be hostile to women who didn't conform to traditional expectations. But perhaps the most powerful outcome was the conversation it sparked about choice. Thousands of women shared their stories of choosing careers, travel, freedom, or simply themselves over motherhood. The stigma began to crack. Years later, Colbert would admit in a podcast that the encounter had forced him to confront his own deep-seated sexism. I thought I was progressive, but I was still judging women by whether they had children. Jennifer exposed that hypocrisy, he said. But that night, all anyone saw was Jennifer Aniston refusing to be shamed for her choices, refusing to justify her life to a man who had no right to question it, refusing to accept that childlessness made her less than. She'd been kicked off the show, but she'd walked away victorious. Not through anger or insults, but through the simple insistence that women's choices are valid, that motherhood isn't mandatory, and that no man, regardless of his platform or politics, has the right to judge a woman's reproductive decisions. The security guards who'd been called to remove her later revealed they'd apologized to her backstage. "We knew it was wrong," one said. "She handled it with more grace than anyone deserved." That grace under pressure became the lasting image. Jennifer Aniston, being forcibly removed for refusing to apologize for not having children, walking with dignity while Stephen Colbert sat behind his desk, exposed as the very thing he claimed to oppose. The empty chair she left became a symbol of all the women silenced for not conforming, all the stories dismissed because they didn't include motherhood, all the lives deemed incomplete by men who had no right to judge. And Stephen Colbert, the man who'd called security on a woman for defending her autonomy, became a cautionary tale about how even progressive men can be agents of patriarchy. His show continued, but his moral authority was gone, removed as definitively as he'd tried to remove Jennifer Aniston. The difference was, she left with her dignity intact. He remained with his hypocrisy exposed. She'd been kicked off his show, but she'd kicked down the facade of his feminism. And everyone watching knew which removal actually mattered.